Okay, so let's try to unpack this. Look, if you're like most of us, you probably have this problem.
It's not a huge problem, I guess, but it's a draining one.
It really is. It's the sheer volume of digital content you think you should be watching. You open your YouTube subscriptions tab, and it's not a manageable feed.
Not at all. You see channels stretching into the 2, maybe even 3-digit numbers, hundreds of unwatched videos. It's just paralyzing.
It's the classic modern dilemma, right? Of having way too much good stuff.
And once you hit that high subscription count, the basic chronological YouTube feed is almost entirely useless.
Yeah.
It stops being a helpful tool, and it starts functioning as a source of this low-level anxiety. It's really the perfect example of information overload.
Exactly, and that anxiety is the key. You know, YouTube itself actually realized this years ago.
Oh, right, when they got rid of the collections feature.
They removed it. They essentially forced power users to realize they needed an external solution just to manage their own attention economy.
Which is, why we're here today. We've got sources that cover the high-level digital strategy for managing this chaos, but also
the really detailed neurobiology on how our brains perform the exact same filtering process.
Right.
So our mission for this deep dive is to connect the strategy, bridging things like browser extensions, to the underlying cognitive architecture.
Specifically, how the brain uses its own internal filters, its brakes, and even rhythmic electrical signals to create focus.
We are going from subscription management straight into inhibitory interneurons. Let's start with that immediate external fix for the overwhelming feed. Our sources point directly to a browser extension called PocketTube.
PocketTube, yeah. It's the tool designed to bring some order to that digital chaos.
It's a great example of an external filter just compensating for what the platform is missing.
It is, and it's cross-platform Chrome, Firefox, Opera, and yes, they have associated mobile apps for iOS and Android.
But the desktop extension is where the real power user features are, right?
That's where they live, yeah.
The core benefit is simple, but it feels revolutionary. It's grouping.
Instead of one giant chronological list, PocketTube lets you organize your channels into these customizable collections or subgroups.
So you could have a daily news briefings group, or a long-form documentary group,
or a just-for-fun cooking group.
Exactly. It instantly transforms that mile-long scroll into these thematic, manageable folders.
And that structure is essential. But the real power comes from the enhanced filtering capabilities that YouTube just doesn't give you natively.
Okay, so beyond the viewing modes, I think there's a deck mode.
Yeah, which is kind of like TweetDeck, but it also lets you apply specific rules. You can filter videos on your feed or on channel pages by duration, by activity, by date.
And that's the critical piece. That's what shifts your usage from passive scrolling to active, intentional management. So let's talk about the specific productivity strategies that flow from this. For the heavy users, how do we kill that backlog anxiety?
Right, so we implement the inbox zero concept, but for content. Think about your high-volume channels, the ones we could call daily creators.
Okay.
You combine 2 filters. First, you use the hide watched feature, and second, you add the past 24 hours.
Wait, walk me through the psychological benefit of that combination. It sounds profound.
It really is. So if a daily video drops and you don't watch it within 24 hours, PocketTube just automatically hides it from that specific group feed.
It's automated expiration for content.
Exactly. You missed the daily news briefing or the daily stock market summary? Fine. You were never going to watch yesterday's anyway.
And this prevents hundreds of these obsolete videos from building up and paralyzing you from even engaging with the new stuff.
You're trading the impossible goal of watching everything for the practical goal of watching what matters now.
That is brilliant. It reframes the content not as a permanent archive, but as a perishable resource.
Yeah.
The anxiety you feel looking at a massive backlog is essentially a mental false alarm. You feel like you have to watch them, but you really don't.
And hiding them, just remove that false alarm from your immediate sightline.
Okay, so that's one strategy. What's the second?
The second major strategy is for content that requires a bigger commitment. We can call these binge banks.
So podcasts, long lectures, narrative series.
That's the stuff. You create a separate, dedicated group for them, and you only open it during planned time blocks.
Like a dedicated 1-hour session on a Saturday morning or something.
Right. I realize now I've been using my subscriptions as one giant, undifferentiated to-do list.
Which makes perfect sense why my brain just shuts down when I look at it.
This framing shifts the responsibility from consume everything to consume intentionally.
Absolutely. And when you do dive into a binge bang, you use the group by channel sort feature.
Oh, that's smart.
It ensures you watch all the episodes sequentially without bouncing around, which, respects the continuity the creators intended.
On the technical side, it's probably worth noting that PocketTube supports syncing across browsers via Google Drive or your Chrome profile.
And the data they collect.
It's limited to your subscription lists and group configurations. Critically, they explicitly state they use read-only access to your YouTube subscription data, and they do not sell that data to third parties.
That level of privacy commitment is important for any third-party app accessing your personal data.
For sure. Which I think brings us to the broader context here.
Yeah.
The 2026 digital strategy trends for the creators themselves.
Right. If we, the consumers, are struggling to consume all this, imagine how hard it is for creators to get noticed.
The massive takeaway here is that as AI-generated content just floods the market, sheer volume is being replaced by voice.
Why is that?
Because AI can generate infinite volume, but it really struggles to generate a consistent, recognizable, trustworthy voice.
So authenticity becomes the new moat around your channel.
Exactly. Your content needs to map to real customer journeys, solving specific problems, not just isolated searches designed to maximize clicks.
So integration linking videos to a broader, coherent purpose that beats volume every single time.
And discovery is still key. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, so traditional SEO principles still apply.
Creators need strategic use of hashtags, tags, all of that to provide context. But there's a massive hidden SEO booster that many people overlook.
What's that?
Captions and subtitles.
Because YouTube indexes them.
It indexes every single word. Every word spoken becomes searchable text in the algorithm, providing this huge textual context for the search index.
So generating accurate captions isn't just an accessibility feature.
No, it's a high-impact, low-effort SEO tactic. It's something every creator needs to hear. You're getting double the SEO value for the same piece of content.
And then finally, there's authentic reach. Collaborating with influencers is still one of the most powerful tactics.
Because it leverages established trust. It feels more natural and authentic than you're paid at.
Right, so the key takeaway for creators is that trust, not just reach, is the metric that matters now.
And to manage that trust, they're relying on social listening tools, often using AI sentiment analysis, to track how the community perceives their channel and benchmark against competitors. So we've covered how we use external software like PocketTube to manage the external fire hose by applying these strategic filters, sorting, hiding what we don't need to see.
Okay.
Now, let's make that pivot. How does the brain do the exact same thing internally?
What's so fascinating here is that the neural mechanism for filtering information is surprisingly analogous to those app features.
Really?
Yeah. In the cortex, the primary inhibitory cell types, neural brakes, you could call them, are the parvalbumin, or PV interneurons, and the somatostatin, or SST interneurons.
They're the gatekeepers that regulate activity.
Absolutely. And these brakes are essential for attention and focus. One study focused on the primary visual cortex, or V1, and it demonstrated this filtering in action right at the sensory input stage.
Okay, so this is like the biological equivalent of avoiding the digital false alarm we were talking about.
Precisely. Researchers activated these PV interneurons, specifically during the early phase of visual activity, that first 120 milliseconds when a signal first arrives.
And the result?
The result was that visual discrimination performance actually improved in the test subjects.
It improved, so activating the brakes made things clearer.
Yes, because that improvement was directly linked to a dramatic decrease in the false alarm rate. It dropped from 0.20 all the way down to 0.09.
Wow.
The activation of those PV cells, it enforced competition among the excitatory pyramidal cells. It helped the system quickly choose the right signal and suppress the ambiguous sensory noise that would have otherwise led to a wrong perception.
So in our YouTube analogy, activating those PV brakes early on is exactly what PocketTube does when it hides the watched videos.
Right. It immediately removes the things that would cause a false mental alarm and wasted cognitive energy.
It's all about enhancing selectivity.
Exactly. And it's also interesting that these instantaneous brakes, the PV and SST interneurons, they're inherently more sensitive to input that arrives in a coordinated rhythmic way, more so than regular excitatory neurons.
So they're built to notice patterns and then apply braking power around that coordinated input.
That's a good way to put it.
So filtering sensory input is key, but what about filtering behavioral output? When we shift our focus to decision-making and emotion, we we move to the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC.
which sits deep in the frontal lobe and is essential to managing cost and assessing effort.
And here we see the inner neurons regulating behavior itself.
During social interactions in male mice, like confrontation, the activity of both PV and SST interneurons in the ACC was actually suppressed.
So the brakes were lifted to facilitate social engagement. That feels counterintuitive.
Oh, so?
We usually associate lifting the brakes with chaos. Are you saying social engagement requires temporarily suspending some of our internal filtering?
In a way, yes. Complex social interactions require a certain openness and, a reallocation of resources. And, conversely, if you optogenetically activated those inner neurons,
Force the brakes on.
right, it immediately suppressed social exploration behaviors. And the PV activation reduced social behavior even more strongly than SST activation. It shows their direct role in controlling or filtering behavioral output.
And the ACC doesn't just manage social behavior, it's central to managing cognitive effort itself.
You use effort in two forms, right? There's resistance-based effort, like overcoming aversion or impatience.
And then there's resource-based effort, which is more about monitoring value or holding complex things in your working memory. The ACC mediates the trade-off for both.
And the neural activity in the ACC reflects this cost management. The sources show that ACC neurons exhibit increased firing when there is significant competition between two possible responses.
Or when you need to change your action, like in a rapid stop-change task.
And that differential firing rate, it increases with the degree of conflict. And importantly, it starts early enough to actually influence the necessary change of behavior before the action is even fully completed.
So the ACC is signaling, warning, high conflict, deploy resources, and activate the filters.
That's exactly it. It's a clear internal signal for when to apply those cognitive brakes.
But how does the brain actually index the need for that effort? How does it communicate whether a situation is easy or difficult?
This brings us to these fascinating primate studies involving uncertainty and brain rhythms.
Okay.
When primates were performing a reversal learning task where the rules suddenly change, creating high uncertainty, a specific subclass of inner neurons in the ACC and the lateral prefrontal cortex synchronized powerfully to the gamma band oscillation.
Specifically 35 to 45 hertz.
Right. And gamma is that high frequency band. It's the signature often associated with intense computation and focus.
So when outcomes were uncertain, what researchers call high reward prediction errors, or RPEs, the circuit was ringing in gamma.
Precisely. But when the outcomes became certain or predictable, those exact same neurons, they switched their synchronization down to lower frequencies.
To the beta or theta band.
Right. So this frequency shift acts as an internal index. It signals the circuit's level of uncertainty. High frequency means high uncertainty, high conflict, high need for filtering.
So if you're staring at 200 videos and you don't know whether to watch them, your brain is in that low-grade gamma state trying to resolve conflict, which ultimately just leads to paralysis. It's too much work.
And this whole system is heavily regulated by dopamine.
Of course.
Dopamine acts as a robust neuromodulator, and its primary job in the ACC is to inhibit pyramidal cell excitability, mainly via the D1 receptor. This inhibitory action is crucial for filtering out noise and maintaining working memory.
We also see how sensitive this whole system is to conditions like chronic pain.
Yes, chronic pain, specifically studied using the spared nerve injury or SNI model, causes a significant decrease in dopamine release in the ACC following acute pain stimulation.
Meaning the system responsible for filtering and regulating cognitive effort becomes dysregulated.
And the interesting part is the reversal. If they increase the supraspinal dopamine supply, say by giving L-dupa carbidopa,
it attenuated the chronic pain hypersensitivity. It restored the normal pyramidal cell excitability.
it restored the brain's filtering and regulatory function.
So ultimately, this all ties back to the brain's highest level of calculation, which is confidence.
Exactly. Our sources define confidence computationally as the estimated inverse expected uncertainty of a prediction.
So if the ACC is indexing uncertainty using these neural rhythms, and dopamine is modulating the sensitivity of the neurons,
It just shows how dynamically the brain regulates its own filtering capability based on how predictable the world seems in that one moment.
So what does this all mean? We started with the chaos of 200 YouTube subscriptions, and we ended up deep inside the anterior cingulate cortex.
It's quite a journey.
The core lesson, though, is that mastery of information, whether it's external or internal, relies entirely on effective, rapid filtering mechanisms to manage our limited resources and focus our attention.
Whether you're managing thousands of digital videos using a power feature like PocketTube's Hide Watched, combined with a time filter to reduce those digital false alarms.
Or your brain is filtering incoming sensory data using PV interneurons in V1 to reduce neural false alarms.
Information mastery requires precise, timely suppression of noise. It's the same principle at every level.
And those tools, they work best when they align with an objective, reducing backlog anxiety or clarifying visual input.
Internally, the ACC helps us deploy that cognitive effort by detecting conflict. That high conflict or high uncertainty state is indexed by that rapid shift in neural activity to the high frequency gamma band.
So the brain is constantly managing its attention budget based on how certain it is about the world and what return it expects for the cognitive effort it's about to expend. Which leaves us with this provocative thought for you to chew on. We have these powerful digital tools to organize massive external data sets by topic and time. But knowing when to activate those filters in our minds requires tracking our internal state of uncertainty.
Okay.
So if the brain uses high-frequency gamma rhythms to signal high uncertainty, what if we could learn to recognize our own psychological gamma band state, that moment of intense, paralyzing internal conflict?
And use that as the internal trigger to apply a cognitive filter to stand back and reassess our effort before we just burn out our resources.